The story begins by showing a man named Song Woo-cheol that being sentenced to 8 years in prison. He is visited by a mother and her son. The mother then asks Woo-cheol to show his face so her son can see him. It turns out that in the past, Woo-cheol accidentally beat his opponent in a boxing match to death. The victim was the son's older brother. After a long time, Woo-cheol finally gets out of prison, and upon his release, he's greeted by his acquaintances, Chong Do-sik and Park Yoon-tae, who are surprised by his refusal of cigarettes. Do-sik then introduces his subordinate named Kang Yoon-jae, who has been working with him for several years. On the journey, they offer him a job at his bar, but Woo-cheol declines, desiring a peaceful life. As they continue, they reminisce about their past dreams of wealth, with only Do-sik having realized them, although mostly from illegal business. During their outing, Do-sik receives an urgent call, leaving Yoon-tae to accompany Woo-cheol to his hotel. Later, Woo-cheol is surprised to find a young woman named Byam in his room. Despite his refusal, Byam insists on staying. Woo-cheol then sees Byam hand has many scars from drug use. Annoyed by Woo-cheol's rejection, Byam chooses to take a shower and prepare to leave, but she then receives a call from her boss, Madam Hund, who orders her not to return home if someone named Chongan is looking for her. After the call, Byam ends up sleeping in the hotel room, and they sleep in separate beds, with Woo-cheol finding it difficult to sleep. Dark memories from his past trouble his sleep, and it appears that Do-sik owns several bars and karaoke establishments within one of his business branches. One of his former comfort women was severely assaulted by someone, but fortunately, she survived. On the other hand, a man is retreating within the confines of a hotel room. The man is Jo Chong-gan, a corrupt police officer who holds business ties with Do-sik. Despite Do-sik's irritation with him, Chong-gan serves as a middleman, connecting him with major drug suppliers, makes Chong-gan like to causing trouble in his business place. The guard, Yoon-jae, is on the verge of losing control upon witnessing his boss being slapped. Had his boss not intervened, he might have taken drastic action against the corrupt officer. Despite his growing frustration, Yoon-jae is compelled to suppress his emotions. At the same time, out at sea, a ship is collecting cargo in the midst of the ocean, with the man named Ri Kak-soo, the primary drug supplier for Chong Do-sik's enterprise. In the morning, Byam left a note in the room before departing. She left first, but surprisingly, she included her phone number. On the other hand, Woo-cheol's goal now is to survive and exit the town. He then visits a job agency with the aim of securing employment on a ship, preferably for an extended period at sea. With a crab fishing vessel is scheduled to depart in 3 days, offering a 2-month voyage. As night falls, Byam's face lingers in Woo-cheol's mind strangely. After some hesitation, he decides to call her, and they arrange to meet at a cafe. Woo-cheol is curious about the circumstances that led Byam to leave, and why she didn't report it to the police. Hearing this, Byam laughs, explaining that she can't do that, admitting involvement in illegal activities, and revealing the person who forced her. Shortly after, Woo-cheol accompanies Byam home. After observing Woo-cheol's hand movements, Byam recognizes him as a boxer. She used to be close to a boxer, and they share similar habits. At a crossroads, Byam excuses herself, teasing Woo-cheol about spending the night together. This makes Woo-cheol nervous instantly, and he thanks her for the company at the cafe, but instead of a goodbye, Byam surprises him with a kiss. Later, Woo-cheol visits his friend Do-sik's place. They reminisce about the past, particularly about a man named Kim Ji-won. At that time, in an underground illegal boxing arena, Woo-cheol confronts Ji-won in the ring. The match intensifies towards the end as Ji-won resorts to cheating, enraging Woo-cheol, who continues to strike him even after the bell rings. The audience becomes furious with Woo-cheol for his actions. Unbeknownst to them, this venue serves as an illegal boxing gambling den managed by Chong Do-sik. All the angry spectators had placed their bets on Ji-won, with instructions from Do-sik. The match was orchestrated with Ji-won expected to emerge victorious, and Woo-cheol had to pretend to be pressured in the initial round. However, he was to secure victory in the second round, with Do-sik signaling the end of the betting period. The stakes were raised significantly by the gamblers, all in favor of G1. As the second round begins, Wuqiu remains under pressure. Suddenly, G1 begins to feel dizzy. Sensing an opportunity, Wuqiu relentlessly attacks him. In the end, G1 collapses and Wuqiu winning the match. When the referee checks on G1, it turns out he had faints and stops breathing. As a result, Wuqiu receives an 8-year prison sentence. In the present, Wuqiu pays a visit to the crematorium to offer his condolences for G1's passing. Witnessing the grief of G1's mother, who is deeply saddened by her son's death, shocks Wuqiu greatly. To his surprise, he learns that G1 was Byam's boyfriend, intensifying his feelings of guilt. It becomes clear why Byam recognized his habits as a boxer. That night, he finds solace in alcohol once again. Suddenly, Wuqiu receives a distressing call from Byam, who cries out in pain. Reacting swiftly, Wuqiu rushes to her aid and discovers her being dragged by someone. He tails them, only to find out that it's Chang'an who is assaulting Byam. Despite his urge to retaliate, Wuqiu recalls Do-Seek's warning not to stir up trouble. Patiently waiting, Wuqiu decides to follow Chang'an. As Chang'an realizes he's being followed, tensions escalate in a dark alley where he confronts Wuqiu. A fight ensues, but for Wuqiu, a skilled boxer, Chang'an proves to be no match. After severely beaten, Chang'an faces Wuqiu's threat that any further harm to Byam will be met with severe consequences. However, upon inspecting Chang'an's ID, Wuqiu discovers he is a police officer and Chang'an begins to threaten him in return. On the other hand, at a quiet port, a ship arrives carrying Do-Seek and his associates eagerly awaiting a drug package from Kak-Su. It turns out that Chang'an serves as the middleman for these transactions, and Kak-Su insists on Chang'an's presence for the deal to proceed. Despite Do-Seek's attempts to reach Chang'an, he remains unreachable. With Chang'an absent, Kak-Su postpones the transaction and instructs his men to depart, returning to the sea. Meanwhile, Wuqiu calls Do-Seek to alert him that he's dealing with a police officer, much to Do-Seek's surprise. He expresses annoyance, regretting his assistance to Byam, whom he views simply as a drug addict. However, he offers to aid Wuqiu under the condition that he works for him, requiring assistance in managing his business operations. Reluctantly, Wuqiu agrees to work at the bar, acknowledging his lack of alternatives. Despite his hate for the underworld, he commits to helping Do-Seek and resuming his boxing training. After assigned as a supervisor at the bar, Wuqiu finds himself compelled to meet Chang'an. Do-Seek then pleads for forgiveness on behalf of Wuqiu, explaining that his actions were due to a misunderstanding and emphasizing his usefulness in assisting their business endeavors. Chang'an agrees to forgive him but delivers a stern lesson. That night, Wuqiu is forced to visit the bar and apologize to Chang'an. However, the encounter escalates as Chang'an proceeds to beat him inside. After the incident, Wuqiu struggles to contain his emotions, harboring a desire to settle the score someday. The following day, Do-Seek then introduces Wuqiu to Ri Kak-Su, a North Korean involved in drug production. Kak-Su then explains their situation, mentioning a stockpile of 40 kilos of finished product and the risk of factory raids. Despite Do-Seek's financial constraints, Kak-Su agrees to the usual transaction terms. As rain begins to fall, Wuqiu steps outside to smoke, where Kak-Su strikes up a conversation. Intrigued by Wuqiu's background, Kak-Su discovers Wuqiu's last name is the same as his mother's. Because he's been working with Do-Seek, Wuqiu moves into the apartment managed by Do-Seek, where he resides with Yunta. They then dress in elegant attire, preparing for their work at the bar that evening. Shortly after, Madame Hund introduces Wuqiu to the staff, including Byam, who seems distant towards him. Assigned as a supervisor, Wuqiu receives instructions from manager Kun Yoon-jae, while Yunta shows interest in one of the entertainers. Madame Hund stresses the importance of reporting any issues with guests to Wuqiu promptly. On his first day as supervisor, Wuqiu faces numerous challenges dealing with drunk customers and tending to Byam, who is intoxicated and unresponsive. Despite his efforts, Byam remains distant, causing Wuchiol's heart to ache as he observes her working as an entertainer. Additionally, Yoon-ta becomes embroiled in a scandal with an entertainer named Hae-ri. That day, Do-sik encounters Chong-gon once again. It's evident that the officer's primary pursuits involve alcohol and drugs, even during work hours. Do-sik harbors a plan to eliminate Kak-soo and seize control of the drug trade, exploiting addicted officers like Chong-gon, and would betray Wuchiol. The situation escalates into a potential gang war, with Chong-gon ready to eliminate Kak-soo under the guise of a routine arrest, allowing Do-sik to secure the drugs and promise Chong-gon a luxurious life in Thailand. However, Chong-gon also doesn't trust Do-sik because he is also afraid of being betrayed by him. Meanwhile, at the bustling bar and club, Yoon-ta suffers a beating from manager Kang Yoon-jae after being caught dating, prompting Wuchiol to intervene. Yoon-ta then confesses his love for Hae-ri, prompting Wuchiol to advise against pursuing the relationship. On the other hand, Yoon-jae urges Wuchiol to assert stricter control over the girls to prevent disobedience. Shortly after, as Ri Kak-soo's gang members arrive at the club, Madam Hund instructs Wuchiol to remain passive in case of trouble. However, chaos ensues as the gangsters harass the girls, with Byam also forced to buy the gangsters, witnessed by Wuchiol. Byam then expresses her anger by calling them as the northern defectors, resulting her getting slapped, prompting Wuchiol to lose his temper. Shortly after, Yoon-jae attempts to defuse the situation, apologizing for the misunderstanding, but Wuchiol's emotions erupt uncontrollably, resulting in Yoon-jae being beaten up. After long restraint, Wuchiol's emotions finally erupt, revealing a different side of him to Byam. The situation went into chaos, leading to the arrest of the gangsters involved. Chong-gon then questions why Madam Hund didn't inform him earlier, and when Wuchiol is about to be taken away, Chong-gon intervenes, advising him to prioritize business and avoid emotional entanglements. As Wuchiol prepares to leave, he is approached by someone who stabs him, but Wuchiol manages to overpower and beat the attacker. Chong-gon arrives and interrogates the assailant, revealing him to be Ji-won's younger brother seeking revenge, identified as Chong-do, and the teenager is taken to the police station. Despite the attack, Wuchiol decides not to press charges, and he is permitted to leave. Chong-do coincidentally encounters Byam, whose real name is Myung-ju, and they engage in conversation. Myung-ju believes that Ji-won's death was a boxing accident, but Chong-do disagrees, claiming his brother once requested 5 million won from their mother, which he suspects was given to Myung-ju. And now Chong-do demands that Myung-ju return the money. On the other hand, Wuchiol spends time at home examining his old injuries when he receives a message from Byam inviting him to meet at the beach. During their conversation, Byam then asked Wuchiol to buy beer and snacks. It turns out that last night, when Byam was interrogated, Chong-gon wanted her to befriend with Wuchiol and install a spy app on his phone, promising to cease his harassment in return. Chong-gon also discloses that Wuchiol was responsible for her boyfriend's death in the boxing ring and had even given her drugs as gifts. Despite initial hesitation, she installed the spy app when Wuchiol left. Later, Wuchiol arrives with beer and snacks, and they take a selfie together. Meanwhile, Yoon-jae expresses embarrassment to Do-sik after being beaten up by Wuchiol, feeling unfit to continue working at the bar. However, Do-sik reassures him, emphasizing Wuchiol's importance for their upcoming plans. Following a discussion with Kak-soo, Do-sik intends to expand their drug business to Seoul, taking Yoon-jae along. Upon returning to the apartment, Wuchiol discovers Yoon-ta with his girlfriend, Hae-ri, who owes Madam Hund a large amount of money. Yoon-ta confides in Wuchiol, seeking his help to involve Do-sik in the drug business to acquire the money needed to pay off Hae-ri's debt. Shortly after, they head to Kak-soo's headquarters, where Wuchiol brings Yoon-ta to the meeting despite Do-sik's initial objections. Do-sik then swiftly negotiates with Kak-soo to purchase drugs, but Kak-soo advises patience as the goods have yet to arrive. Kak-soo then requests a private conversation with Wuchiol, expressing a sense of trust towards him despite their recent acquaintance. He questions Wuchil about the reliability of Do-sik as a business partner, to which Wuchil assures him of Do-sik's trustworthiness. However, Kak-su warns Wuchil how people can easily change even if they're his friends. Kak-su then proposes Wuchil work with him instead, but Wuchil remains silent, pondering the offer. During the car ride, Wuchil shares his conversation with Kak-su with Do-sik, who senses Kak-su's favor towards Wuchil. Seizing the opportunity, Do-sik urges Wuchil to leverage his relationship with Kak-su to remove Chang'an from their dealings, persuading Kak-su to find an alternative intermediary. Unbeknownst to them, Chang'an overhears their conversation, shocked by Do-sik's desire to eliminate him. He promptly contacts Do-sik, informing him of a change in plans and delaying their business arrangements. This revelation angers Do-sik, who had hoped for an immediate raid on Kak-su's gang to seize control of the drug trade. Shortly after, Chang'an meets with Kak-su, cautioning him to remain wary of Wuchil and Do-sik, advising against getting too close to Wuchil. Despite Kak-su's criminal nature, he vows to heed Chang'an's warning, though harboring doubts about the corrupt officer's intentions. However, Chang'an still had a backup plan by trying to break the friendship between Do-sik and Wuchil. He then invites Wuchil to the parking lot and reveals a significant secret about G1's demise. During the boxing match, it turns out Do-sik had paid G1's coach to slip a sedative during their match, which resulting in G1 feeling dizzy during their match. Wuchil is devastated to learn the truth, feeling deeply betrayed by his friend. On the other hand, Byam is compelled to borrow 5 million won from Madam Hund, prompting Wuchil to intervene out of concern she may use it for drugs. However, Byam denies the accusation by giving the money to Changdo. Determined to find her, Wuchil eventually locates Byam sitting alone, where he addresses her by her real name, sparking her anger. Byam expresses frustration with her difficult life, prompting Wuchil to reveal his affection for her. In a surprising turn, Byam requests to delete her pictures from Wuchil's phone, secretly removing the spy app installed by Chang'an before departing. The following day, Wuchil confronts Do-sik, expressing reluctance to proceed with their plan to deceive Kak-su, fearing the consequences of returning to jail. Despite Do-sik's reminder of past assistance, Wuchil no longer trusts him and decides to leave. In frustration, Do-sik lashes out, intending to harass Byam. But Madam Hund intervenes, further fueling Do-sik's anger. He vents his frustration on Madam Hund, and he won't allow Byam to leave. Seeing this, Byam cries because Madam Hund was like her older sister. After that, Do-sik instructs Yunta, who resides with Wuchil, to monitor Wuchil's activities and report back to him. Meanwhile, Chang'an attempts to tap into Wuchil's phone, but discovers it's unreachable, realizing Byam's betrayal and fueling his anger further. In his office, Chang'an witnesses Changdo being arrested by a colleague for pulling out a knife during a gambling dispute. Chang'an then intervenes, taking charge of the situation, as he has a plan involving Changdo. He then reveals to Changdo that Byam is dating Wuchil, the person that's responsible for his brother's death, which inciting Changdo's anger. That evening, Byam is startled by a knock on the door, only to find Changdo attacking her. In a desperate struggle, Byam defends herself with a knife, causing Changdo's death. She immediately contacts Wuchil, who arrives to find Changdo's lifeless body. Wuchil then comforts Byam and takes charge of the situation, knowing they can no longer trust Do-sik. He then calls Kak-su to dispose the body. As they dispose of Changdo's body at sea, Kak-su unexpectedly brings along Chang'an, who is drunk. Kak-su then reassures Wuchil of Chang'an's importance in their plans and advises him to commit fully until the end if he intends to save someone. Not long after, Wuchil resolves matters with Byam, advising her to continue her routine at work. However, when he was about to leave, Byam stops him and requests his company for the night. The following day, Chang'an then summons Wuchil to the interrogation room for a private conversation. Chang'an expresses his distrust of both Do-sik and Kak-su, revealing a plan to confront Kak-su during a transaction on May 2nd, aiming to eliminate him and secure their freedom. Reluctantly, Wuchiol agrees to participate. Meanwhile, Do-sik, already angered by Wuchiol, challenges him to a boxing match and beats him up. In retaliation, Wuchiol fights back and ends their friendship, declaring his independence from Do-sik's influence. Unbeknownst to Wuchiol, Yunta, whom he trusted, is actually spying on him for monetary gain. As they sit together, plotting their move for May 2nd to deceive and eliminate Kaksu. However, Wuchiol promptly confides in Kaksu about Do-sik's scheme to eliminate him. He proposes a plan for Kaksu to confront Do-sik when they receive their drug shipment. Wuchiol then requests Kaksu's assistance in smuggling him to Thailand or Vietnam afterward, along with financial support for him and Byam. Kaksu agrees, but on the condition that Byam must return to Korea to work for him once she is safe. Unknown to them, Do-sik has been eavesdropping on their conversation through a bug planted on Wuchiol's phone. He instructs Yoon-jae and alerts Chong-gon and his team to prepare for action. When Do-sik meets Wuchiol, he tasks him with discovering the location where Kaksu docks his ship from the north, and Jang-gon asks Wuchiol to take all the transaction money. Despite the risks involved, both Kaksu and Do-sik have made demands of Wuchiol. Nevertheless, Wuchiol pledges to Byam that he will return, as he embarks on this dangerous mission. The anticipated day arrives, and Wuchiol prepares for his mission. He instructs Yunta to wait for him at a specific location and to leave by 4 a.m. if he hasn't returned, without answering any calls, even from Wuchiol himself. Meanwhile, Byam is taken into police custody as collateral until Wuchiol hands over the money, with Do-sik accompanies her. That night, Wuchiol emerges with the money and departs in another vehicle. Do-sik is confident, believing Wuchiol, the skilled boxer, will succeed. As Kaksu and his men arrive by boat to deliver the drugs, Wuchiol throws his money, but suddenly Kaksu's men attack him, with Kaksu joining in. With all, the event is observed from a distance by Do-sik. Shortly after, Kaksu is finished off with a knife. Seeing this, Do-sik is very happy, thinking Wuchiol is following his orders, and he instructs Wuchiol to go to a specific location. Not long after, Yoon-jae reports to Do-sik that everything is ready, and Wuchiol is on his way to where Chong-gon is waiting to receive the money. But before giving the money, he asked Chong-gon to let Byam go first. After Byam was taken by Yunta, Wuchiol then handed over the money. However, after receiving it, Chong-gon immediately betrayed Wuchiol and shot him. Before ending his life, Chong-gon tries to taunt Wuchiol by playing with his gun. Seeing an opportunity, Wuchiol manages to grab the gun and shoot Chong-gon. On the other hand, Yunta and Byam wait for Wuchiol at the agreed-upon location. When Wuchiol arrives, he has a wounded leg, but Byam is nowhere to be found. Yunta explains that Byam has been taken to a safe place. Suddenly, they hear a noise from the car trunk. Wuchiol wants to investigate, but Yunta unexpectedly attacks him. Yunta apologizes, revealing that he was forced into betraying Wuchiol because Do-sik had detained Hae-ri. He didn't want Hae-ri to be harmed by Do-sik. Although Wuchiol initially wanted to retaliate against Yunta, seeing him plead and cry, Wuchiol forgives him, perhaps viewing it as repayment for his own past wrongdoings. He is even willing to meet his end at Yunta's hands. Wuchiol then urges Yunta not to harm Byam, emphasizing her innocence. Despite this, Yunta's knife strikes deeper, and Wuchiol reminisces about his moments with Byam, grateful that even someone like him, with a dark past, could experience love. After that, Yunta then leaves Wuchiol behind. On his way, Yunta releases Byam, who rushes back to find Wuchiol lying lifeless, and she cries sadly at the sight. On the other hand, Do-sik anxiously awaits news from Chong-gon, wondering if Chong-gon has succeeded in eliminating Wuchiol, but there is no response. Suddenly, Kaksu and his men launch an attack on Do-sik's headquarters, catching Do-sik off guard. To his surprise, Kaksu is still alive, as Wuchiol had revealed to Kaksu that their conversation had been monitored by Do-sik. Knowing this, Kaksu and Wuchiol devise a new plan. Kaksu and his men stage their own deaths at the hands of Wuchiol, with Kak-soo wearing protective gear and suspecting that Do-sik might be observing from a distance. After that, they successfully eliminate all of Do-sik's men, leaving Do-sik to deal with Yoon-jae, who is already struggling. A week after the incident, Yoon-jae turns out to be still alive after being released by Kak-soo. Yoon-jae then meets with Do-sik and reports that he successfully acquired the money and drugs. When asked about Yoon-ta, Yoon-jae reveals that he encountered and eliminated him, because the money and the drugs were in his car, and he intended to go to Seoul and walk away from there. Unexpectedly, Yoon-jae eliminates Do-sik after Kak-soo sparing his life to finish off Do-sik. Do-sik then falls to his injuries and dies from blood loss. Kak-soo then seizes control of all of Do-sik's bars and business, with Yoon-jae securing a stable position as manager. With Kak-soo credits Woo-cheol for their success, and everyone expresses gratitude towards him. On the other hand, Byum is joyfully preparing a meal at home when Woo-cheol arrives. She warmly greets him, experiencing the happy ending she had longed for. However, this happy scene is merely a figment of Byum's drug-induced delusion, and the film concludes. Moral lesson from the story: if someone asks to buy you a drink after a meeting at the beach, you better bring your phone, or you might find your phone filled with mysterious programs that include selfie photos.